From the headquarters of the American Radio Relay League in Newington, Connecticut, this is ARRL Audio News for Friday, March 3, 2017. This program is produced by the ARRL, the National Association for Amateur Radio, and features news highlights compiled from the ARRL letter, found on the web at www.arrl.org. Sitting in for Sean Kutzko, I'm Steve Ford, WB8IMY. Former Federal Emergency Management Agency Administrator Craig Fugate, KK4INZ, told a U.S. House subcommittee this week that the agency needs to have a new and experienced administrator soon, or it would lose its forward momentum. That sentiment was echoed by House members during a February 28th meeting on FEMA's future held by the House Homeland Security Committee's Emergency Preparedness, Response, and Communications Subcommittee. Quote, "It's not good to do on-the-job training," Fugate told the lawmakers. "It's too brutal, and the citizens deserve better." He said that whoever ends up heading the agency should understand that FEMA's role in disaster response is, quote, "not about putting FEMA in charge," close quote. He went on to say, quote, "My parting advice for the FEMA team was to continue going big, going early, going fast, and being smart about it," close quote. The new FEMA head should build upon, as Fugate put it, the strides the agency has made since Hurricane Katrina. During his time at FEMA, from 2009 until January, Fugate was a strong supporter of amateur radio as a communications resource in disasters. Fugate said that now he's home in Florida, he's hoping to have more opportunities to pursue his interests in digital modes. He belongs to the Gainesville Amateur Radio Society. Dayton Hamvention has announced its 2017 award winners for Amateur of the Year, Club of the Year, and Special Achievement. Each year, Hamvention honors radio amateurs who have made major contributions to the art and science of amateur radio. Amateur radio on the International Space Station chair Frank Bauer, KA3HDO of Silver Spring, Maryland, is Hamvention's 2017 Amateur of the Year. Bauer has been a driving force behind the program since its inception. He also serves as AMSAT North America Vice President for Human Spaceflight. In the mid-1990s, Bauer proposed an experiment to have the high Earth orbit AMSAT Phase 3D satellite, later known as AMSAT Oscar 40, measure the signal strength of the GPS satellite constellation. The Oscar 40 experiment subsequently has been cited often in aerospace literature. The Clark County Amateur Radio Club of Vancouver, Washington, is the Hamvention Club of the Year for 2017. Established in 1930, the club serves southwest Washington and northwest Oregon. The Clark County Amateur Radio Club has been an ARRL-affiliated club since 1932 and is also an ARRL Special Service Club. The club is active in community service. Under the club's W7AIA call sign, CCARC members participated in 8 public service activities last year, running up more than 1,500 hours of volunteer service. The club has an active and growing youth program. It supports the Boy Scouts of America and sponsored a jamboree on the air station in 2016. The club also is working to establish a Communications Explorer post in Vancouver, Washington, as well as to license students within a local trade school. S. Ram Mohan, VU2MYH of Hyderabad, India, will receive Hamvention's 2017 Special Achievement Award. Mohan is the Executive Vice Chairman and Director of the National Institute of Amateur Radio in Hyderabad. Licensed since 1988, he has conducted a number of experiments on HF and VHF communications equipment and carried out propagation tests, organized training programs, de-expeditions, workshops, and general amateur radio activities, including public service communication. As chief investigator for the Indian Department of Information Technology, he has successfully implemented programs on digital connectivity to urban, rural, and remote areas through amateur radio. Rob Brownstein, K6RB, is the recipient of the Hamvention 2017 Technical Achievement Award. Licensed in 1958 at age 11, Brownstein could hardly wait to upgrade to general and get on single sideband, but he soon discovered that he enjoyed operating CW much more. So he put his microphone aside and never looked back. In January 2010, Brownstein was among a dozen hams on several continents who founded the CW Operators Club, known simply as CW Ops. In 2012, he was elected president of CW Ops and served 2 consecutive terms. During his tenure as president, Brownstein encouraged and participated in all aspects of the club, from rag chewing and contesting to mentoring through CW Academy, begun in earnest in 2012. Since then, the Academy has mentored more than 800 amateur radio operators through its beginner, intermediate, and advanced CW courses. Official award presentations will take place at Hamvention May 19th through the 21st at the Greene County Fairgrounds and Expo Center in Xenia, Ohio. Work continues on the 2018 World Radio Sport Team Championship in Germany. The event's all-volunteer organization committee reports that while many necessary tasks are out of the way, much more work remains. So far, among other things, it has wrapped up the qualification process, drafted official rules for the WRTC 2018 competition, evaluated 160 possible station sites, selected and tested antennas and antenna-related gear, completed the first major round of testing, and inked several contracts with major sponsors. The World Radio Team Championships feature approximately 60 two-person amateur radio teams competing in a test of operating skill. The event is concurrent with the IARU HF Championship in July, although WRTC rules vary from those of the IARU contest. Now with this week's satellite update, here's Bruce Page, KK5DO.
NIF-1, having been successfully launched and operational, has received an Oscar number. It is now Emirates Oscar 88, or EO88. Continuing from last week's segment on spacecraft reentry, the question was, in the case of a spacecraft with radio transmit capability, should we expect it to stop transmitting at some point prior to actual reentry for some electrical or RF reason, or do objects normally keep transmitting until they fail structurally due to heat and mechanical breakup? Phil, KA9Q, replies, well, that depends on how much of the drag heat gets into the electronics and whether they get too hot to function before structural failure. The air is so thin in the upper mesosphere and the velocity is still so high that heating effects probably overwhelm aerodynamic forces, so initial structural failure probably comes from melting, not mechanical pressure. This is Bruce Page, KK5DO, for the ARRL Audio News.
Commenting in a UK regulatory proceeding, the Radio Society of Great Britain has taken issue with assertions by telecoms regulator Ofcom that the agency, quote, advises and assists spectrum users to help resolve harmful interference, close quote. The RSGB said that while Ofcom does advise complainants from the amateur radio community and elsewhere, it is, quote, usually only to the extent of advising that they can do nothing and have no further interest in the case, close quote. The situation in the UK somewhat mirrors that in the US, where the FCC has dialed back the number of personnel available in the field to handle complaints. The recent SpaceX cargo resupply mission to the International Space Station docked last Thursday. Among the many items it brought, it also carried a new Ericsson 2-meter handheld radio to replace the one that failed a few months ago. Its failure disrupted the amateur radio on the International Space Station program, also known as ARRL. The VHF radio in the Columbus module was used for school group contacts and for amateur radio packet. Those operations were temporarily relocated to UHF after the VHF radio failure. ARRL International Chair Frank Bauer, KA3HDO, said the new Ericsson radio will, at some point, be installed in the Columbus module, replacing the Ericsson UHF radio now supporting APRS packet and some school contacts. Bauer made it clear that the new Ericsson transceiver is an interim measure for ARRL. Bauer thanked all of ARRL's partners, which included ARRL and AMSAT, as well as individuals and entities that have donated to the program. In December, ARRL announced a notable contribution from the Quarter Century Wireless Association to help support development and certification of new radio hardware. That concludes ARRL Audio News for this week. Our thanks to all contributors to this week's report. ARRL Audio News is produced by the American Radio Relay League, the National Association for Amateur Radio. For more information on amateur radio or the ARRL, visit us on the web at arrl.org. You can also find us on Facebook and Twitter by searching for ARRL. If you have a question or comment about ARRL Audio News, email us at audionews@arrl.org. This program is copyright 2017 ARRL, and all rights are reserved. Until next week, I'm Steve Ford, WB8IMY 73, and thanks for listening.